Hello everyone, today we are here with ReignBotHorror. Is there anything you would like to say before we get started?
Well, first of all, just thanks for having me, actually.
My pleasure. Okay, we have a lot of different questions for you, so we'll go ahead and jump right in. How did you come up with your channel name?
That one's kind of funny, actually, because I've talked about it a little bit on my channel before, but I don't think I've actually given a straight response. But basically, long story short, because my real name is actually Rain, and I wanted to make sure to kind of keep that on my channel when I made it. And the bot part is sort of hard to explain because I was talking to my husband about it, like what to name my channel, and he brought up a reference to the SpongeBob episode where there was this robot imitation Mr. Krabs, and he wanted me to put it in the name somehow, and I thought it was a stupid idea, so we kind of just reached a compromise with the bot part. So that's kind of how ReignBot came up. And then the horror part is just for the sake of marketing. Like, I just wanted to make sure that people knew, what they were gonna click on, basically, right?
How did your persona come to be?
To be honest, I don't exactly have a persona per se. Like, I do have sort of a character as my profile picture, or not my profile, well, not anymore, but I used to have that there as my profile picture, but now it's on my channel art. And basically, like, I didn't start out with that to begin with. Like, what I wanted to do was, again, sort of keep it personal. So it is a self-portrait that I drew, and I don't know. I just sort of like took a picture of myself, drew it out, and tried to make myself look as cool as possible. I guess, as lame as that is to say. But yeah, it's not exactly a persona. It's just sort of I guess a self-portrait. Like, I just wanted to make something that was me, but not me at the same time, just to represent my channel instead of just using my face. Although right now I do have my face as my profile picture, but I may be changing that soon, but I'm not quite sure yet. But yeah, so it's not exactly a persona, but yeah, it's just meant to be me, but not quite me. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any future plans for your channel?
That it's hard to say because my channel has always been kind of all over the place. So right now, like, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to be doing, but I know that I'm probably going to gravitate a little bit more towards the countdowns or the compilation style stuff. I think that for the viewers, that's probably what they find to be more interesting. Like, I could read stories, like individual stories, or do the more traditional format, but I feel like I have to come to sort of a middle ground with my subscribers. So I guess that's more of what they want to see. So I'm going to try to keep it in that format as much as possible. As for the subject matter, I'm not exactly sure yet. I have a list of ideas that I go through, and every week I'll pick whichever one I'm feeling like doing. So it's really hard to say right now.
How has narrating changed you and your life?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so basically, before I started my channel, I mean, this has been a long process, but I was always really shy, and I always kind of had a speech problem and a stuttering problem, especially when it came to public speech. I had someone who I knew in high school who was a teacher of mine, and he said that when I do start to speak and I do sort of come out of my shell, that I really shine through. And I'm not trying to say I'm a great narrator or anything, but I wanted to sort of bring that forward, I guess. So when I started to narrate at first, it was a really, really, really nerve-wracking thing, and I was so scared all the time. Like, every time I would post a video, I was just, no one was going to view it anyway. I mean, I didn't have any subscribers, of course, when I first started, but I was always afraid of the way that I sounded. And I know that a lot of people point out that I talk funny, or that they don't like the way that I read things. And, that was always such an insecurity of mine. But, since I've got the ball rolling, and since I've been doing this for nearly 10 months now, I definitely feel a lot more confident. Like, I'm able to speak to people a lot better now, and communicate, and just, not worry so much about what people think, and there's still, of course, the occasional negative comment, but I've learned how to deal with those a lot better now. both online and in real life. So yeah, that's pretty much what it's done for me. I mean, there's a lot more I could talk about, but that would go on forever. But that's probably the biggest thing.
Why did you start narrating?
Okay, so like I mentioned in the last question, there was someone who told me back when I was in high school that I had, I guess, a sort of talent for doing these types of things. Or not, maybe not a talent, but she said that I was good at it when I sort of came out of my shell and sort of overcame the shyness that I had. So that was one aspect of it. The other thing was that, let me see, I started my channel in February of this year. And before that, the year before, so 2014, I randomly decided to move out to Texas. Like me and my husband, we just packed up. Like we decided 2 weeks before, and we packed up and just moved to Texas. And we basically got into a lot of trouble there, a lot of financial issues. And we came back to Hawaii, and we weren't doing very well. And when we started to come back up from that, I was just really bored. And I mean, I was working at the time, but I just felt that I just felt like my free time wasn't being used well enough, and I was I don't know, like I really didn't feel good about myself at the time, and that's when my husband suggested that I should do something that I'm passionate about, and do something that will take up my time, and be positive for me instead of just doing whatever else I was doing before. So originally, when I made my channel in February, it was a dare actually from my husband. He told me to actually try to make videos because before that I was too afraid to do it, as I mentioned before. And basically, he wanted me to stick to it for 3 months consecutively, like a video a week or whatever schedule I wanted to pick, but stick to it for 3 months straight. And I did that, and after the 3 months, I wasn't trying to get subscribers or anything. It was just about having fun. And after the 3 months, I enjoyed it so much and I got so much out of it in just 3 months that I decided, just keep going. And yeah, I don't plan on quitting anytime soon.
What creepypasta do you want to narrate but are having trouble doing so?
Okay, so this took me forever to do, but I finally read No End House, and I can't believe I didn't read it earlier because I've heard so many good things about it. And I really, really, really wish that I could narrate that story, but my biggest issue with it is that it's told from a male perspective, of course, and I would have to switch things up. And the main character's name is actually said in that story, so I'd have to figure out some kind of way to adjust that, I guess. And I guess that's sort of the hard part about being a female narrator. That I think when most people go and listen to your channel, or they see your channel, they don't necessarily expect a female. So sometimes you just have to compensate for it. So yeah, like with that channel, or sorry, not that channel, that story, I'd have to change up certain things in order to be able to do it. So what I was thinking about doing with it instead, which kind of doesn't apply to my channel, but eventually one day I really want to be able to do either a comic for it or some kind of animation or something, because I am in art school right now. So I would really like to sort of take, not just that creepypasta, but any other stories that I find to be really good and really entertaining. I want to try to see if I can adapt them in some other way on my channel. That way, the narrating part won't exactly be an issue, and I can just sort of do something else with it. But that's something for far away from now, so I can't say when that would happen or if it's ever going to happen. But yeah, definitely No One House. No One House like blew me away when I read it last week, or 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I can't believe I waited so long.
Which creepypasta has made an impact on your life?
Okay, so I've talked about this on my channel before too, but my sort of favorite, or one of my favorite creepypastas is called A Small Piece of Lead, and it's not that well known, but I think it won Pasta of the Month in like March or something like that, and that was the first full-length story that I actually narrated. And the reason why it had such an impact on me is because before that I only did really short, like micro pastas or troll pastas, just to practice, like most narrators do when they first get into creepypasta. So I tried that out, and I thought, okay, this is fine, I can do this. And then that story was, I think, something like 8 pages long, and I had no idea how much of a task that would be to record and edit. And I had a deadline in mind, and I did not meet that deadline. I did half of it first, and then released the other half on my channel. But that was the first actual narration that I did, and it really, really challenged me and made me realize like how much work actually goes into everything that, you know, narrators do, especially in creepypasta, especially for longer stories. Anyone who's narrated pen pal, I mean, I give them props for doing something that long. But yeah, so that's also my favorite creepypasta as of now. I mean, one of my favorites, but yeah, that one has definitely taught me a lot.
What creepypasta will you not narrate?
Okay, so this also applies to, you know, not just creepypasta, but anything. Like if it's a story that I don't feel affected by, or a story that, you know, a story that I can't stand behind, a story that I don't personally enjoy, then there wouldn't be any point in narrating it. You know, I really wouldn't, I mean, in terms of creepypasta anyway, I really wouldn't want to narrate like those, you know, like the ones that are kind of looked down upon, like Jeff the Killer and whatnot. And it's not because of the popularity thing, it's just because I personally can't stand behind them, and I don't think okay, on the other end of it too, I mean, for the people who do like, you know, like Jeff the Killer or Clockwork or whatever, like I wouldn't be able to do those stories justice anyway. So there are some times when, you know, people will throw suggestions at me, but it's either because I personally don't enjoy the story or I can't do it justice. Those are the main two things that would result in me not narrating a story or creepypasta.
Why did you decide to start doing true stories?
Okay, so I think I did my first true story video in March. So I started my channel in February, and in March is when I did my first true story, because before that I was doing creepypasta, like, you know, small narrations and reviews here and there, blind readings and stuff like that. And the reason behind that is because I think at the time, I think it was Top 15s or whatever the channel was, Top 15s, yeah, who did it. And I noticed that that video was getting a lot of attention at the time, but I mean, this was before the sort of boom of the true stories that has happened recently. And, you know, the main thing that stuck out for me about that video at the time is that it really, really was effective. Like, you know, instead of just being one creepypasta per video like we would normally do in the sort of traditional, I guess, creepypasta community, this was a compilation of true stories that were from, you know, various different sources, and the fact that they're true, I think, really, or supposedly true. I mean, we can't prove that they're true, but the fact that they came from reality, I think, really, really shocked people. And the stories that I heard from that video, they really did scare me, and I can say that that was the first time in a long time that I felt afraid of stories. And, you know, I was paranoid for a while. Like, I was checking under my bed, and I know that sounds stupid, but I was totally checking under my bed, and I was looking in my closets and everything, because they were just really shocking to me initially anyway. I mean, nowadays, you know, you hear them so often that they kind of don't have the same effect anymore, but at first I just thought they were so scary, and on top of that, you know, they're just so relatable. Like, a lot of the stories revolve around being stalked, or you know, coming in close contact with some kind of creeper or something like that, you know, in your day-to-day life. And I've experienced that. I mean, I think everyone's experienced that. So basically, after seeing that video, and shortly after, I think Mr. Nightmare also released his first video on it, I really liked them, so I just went and found some, and then I decided to do it. And that's honestly when my channel started to have some more growth on it. Like, when I released that first video, I think I had less than 100 subscribers at the time, really, and I was really, really, really struggling to get noticed at all. And after I did that, you know, people started to actually come to my channel a little bit more. I mean, I didn't want to just abandon the creepypastas, of course, but yeah, like, to summarize, I'm sorry, I kind of ramble along, but to summarize, basically, I started to do the true scary stories initially because they just really scared the crap out of me. And like I said, I enjoy giving content that I can stand behind, and those stories, specifically the ones I picked, like, they really, really scared me. So that's why I felt like I had to put them in a video, and that's what happened.
What are the differences between doing creepypastas and true stories?
Okay, so, gosh. So I'm pretty sure most people, I mean, I'm not exactly sure because I haven't talked to too many people, like, in terms of subscribers or viewers about it. I've talked to other YouTubers about it, but you know, there seems to be a second or a new wave of horror that's come out on YouTube right now. Because of course, before this year, you know, creepypastas were like the big thing. Everyone wanted to design their own character and write their own origin story and do all that kind of stuff. But now it's just looked down upon almost by some people. Like I do have some subscribers who, you know, prefer one or the other. The ones who like the creepypastas tend to be more quiet about it, and they'll kind of listen to whatever I upload. So they're a little bit nicer about it. There are some other people who will actually demand for me to only do true stories, or else they'll unsubscribe. But yeah, like I think that the overall platform has just changed because, like I said, when I first started my channel, that was like in February. And at the time, you know, everyone still wanted to be Mr. Creepypasta, and everyone still wanted to be Creeps McPasta. People wanted to write their own stories and, you know, do all this crazy stuff. And then all of a sudden, this true story thing happened, which I saw unfold. And now there's sort of a different expectation. So, you know, there's a lot of channels that have converted. Like, there are a lot of creepypasta channels that have converted to just sort of general or true story horror channels. And the community has just changed drastically. So in terms of like actually narrating them though, like from a technical aspect, I think that honestly though, creepypastas, in my opinion, are a lot more difficult because you actually sort of have to voice act. I mean, when you're narrating true stories off Reddit, you know, they're told in a very casual kind of way. Like they're told in a sort of way where it's like, you know, you're sitting in your living room with a bunch of friends maybe, and you're just telling them this crazy story that happened to you the other day. But creepypastas, though, you know, they're very, very refined, or I mean, the good ones anyway. They're very refined, and you know, they've got these characters in them and all that. So as a narrator, I mean, you have to take a step above and actually become sort of a voice actor as well. And I was not necessarily the best at doing that, but a lot of people out there who do creepypasta narrations, I mean, there are some amazing voice actors out there, you know. And there's a lot of effort that you have to put into narrating a creepypasta in terms of voice acting, you know, trying to create the character for yourself. And then there, you know, there's background music and all this other stuff that you could add that generally doesn't go into the true stories because the true stories, for the most part, are more so minimalist. But yeah, so they're both very, very, very different, despite both being horror. But yeah, I think that the true stories have changed a lot about just YouTube horror in general. And whether or not that's a good or a bad thing is sort of up to the viewers, I suppose.
Is it harder to tell a story knowing that it's real?
You know, on my channel, I do sort of two styles. Like, you know, there's the true crime sort of genre that I don't think is too common on YouTube, but you know, it is there, right? Like the documentary style telling of a true crime case, and then there's the Reddit stories that are just first person, you know, coming from the person who told them. When you tell a story that's just you know, from a person, you basically like, okay, like you can just tell the story again very casually and very minimalistically, and you can sort of mimic what you think that they felt like at the time and then put it into your narration. But when you do like a true crime thing, for example, I have a video on like top 5 things you should never Google, and that's some very sensitive stuff. You know, that's real people and real murders and all that kind of stuff. And I also have another video that was on 5 unsolved murder cases. You know, these are real people, and they're not masked by like a username. You know who these people are, you see their faces. So there's sort of a different tone that comes with those two different types of true stories. To me, though, personally, the ones that are harder to narrate are the actual true crime sort of stories because, you know, I don't want to come off as, you know, oh, I'm using your misfortune as something to bank on. Like I do want to. I do want my subscribers to understand that you should still be sensitive towards the situations. I mean, I understand YouTube is at the end of the day entertainment, but you know, there's still something I guess deeper to be learned from the true crime stories at least. So yeah, it does get difficult knowing that the stories are true, but difficult in a different way because again, like I said about creepypasta, it's difficult because you have to do so many sort of artsy things and fabricate it yourself. But true stories, on the other hand, are just harder to narrate because of where they come from, basically.
Is there a true story that made an impact on you?
I probably can't name any one specifically, but like I said, the first True Stories video from Top 15s, all the stories there really scared the crap out of me. So they were really good. And let me see, like I recently just finished editing a video of people's experiences with death. So people who are basically, legally dead and came back to life after a few minutes or so. And basically they explain what it was like to die, what they felt like, and like the experience and what happened afterwards. And I mean, I'm gonna release that video later on today, but those stories like really stuck out to me. Like I just had a random thought one day, like I wonder what it's like, because I've heard of people who have experienced that before, but I've never heard any like sort of firsthand accounts. So I went and looked them up, and the stories I read were just crazy. Like it's weird to see what it's like basically on the other side, I guess. And I don't know exactly what the best way to describe it would be, but those stories really got to me though. So yeah, sorry, I can't really name like one story, but those are the groups of stories that have really affected me in terms of the true stories.
Why did you decide to start doing countdowns?
So YouTube. I mean, I hate to say this, but YouTube is okay. I take back what I was going to say. I was going to say that YouTube's a popularity game, but how do I say this more constructively? Okay, so when when you're trying to make a channel and make your videos and all that, you have to keep in mind. I'm sure you know this, but you have to keep in mind the way that the viewer likes to see things. And it's come to my attention that especially in the last, I think maybe 2 years, the top 10 or whatever kind of countdown format has become very popular on YouTube. And that's not just in the horror genre, it's amongst all genres. And I mean, creepypastas are great because you can concentrate on that one story and just get into it. But I think a lot of people are sort of afraid of that. Like, what if I sit here and listen to a 10-minute story and I end up not liking it? I think people like the countdowns a lot more because you get to sort of see, stuff that's grouped together by just a genre or a category, and then you get to see a lot of different things within that, and that basically helps you not be disappointed at the end, I guess. But yeah, so my first countdown video was my first True Stories video as well. So I figured that the format would be more friendly to the viewers, basically. Like ultimately that's the reason why I do that, because I want it to be easier for the viewers, and I want to make them feel comfortable with watching the content as much as possible. So if that's the format that they prefer, then that's fine with me. I prefer to just I prefer more so a compilation. I don't really like the ranked sort of countdown thing because I'm not one to say like what is better than whatever. Like I don't have the right to say that something is better. So I tend to just count them down from from the lowest number and then go to the highest number instead of counting down to number one. Yeah, so that's pretty much why I do the countdowns. I just want my viewers to have it in a format that they like.
What is the funnest part about doing countdowns?
Yeah, the best part about it, in my opinion, is actually being able to explore a topic. Like like being able to just sort of preview and give a little window of something, and then show all this other stuff behind it. Like being able to sort of showcase a lot of stuff at one time. Because normally, I mean, traditionally, before the top 10 thing was really popular on YouTube, I think it was really hard to sort of do all that because I mean, people's attention spans are only so long, so you can't like go into deep detail about all these different topics in one video. Your video is probably going to be hours long, but now you can talk about a bunch of different topics in like 5 to 10 minutes. So that's probably the best thing about countdowns, is being able to just explore all this stuff.
What is the hardest part about doing countdowns?
For me, that's probably the editing part and the scripting part. Like trying to get stories that will flow together well enough, and trying to script it where it doesn't sound all weird and pieced together like Frankenstein or something. And I guess keeping them interesting, because the problem with countdowns is that, a lot of people, there's the obvious ones. Like, for example, my other video on the unsolved murder cases, there is a ton of that. If you Google that, or, if you search it in YouTube, you'll find a lot of videos with the same title. But I tried my hardest to find cases that I personally found interesting, or that I felt like people needed to know about. Like the hardest thing about countdowns is not reposting the same content as everybody else, because the last thing that your viewers want to see is the same story, like, from 5 different people. So yeah, that's definitely the most challenging thing I can think of.
Why did you decide to start doing reviews?
Funny thing is, reviews were actually the first thing that I really wanted to do. Like, my very, very first video, which isn't there anymore, was actually a review of Where Bad Kids Go, the creepypasta. And like I said, originally, the reason why I made my channel is because I wanted to do something I was passionate about and sort of stick to it and commit to it. And that was a 3-month challenge to keep doing videos like that. And one thing that I really like to do, but I think a lot of people that I know don't really like that I do, or don't care that I do, or whatever, is, I like to sort of endlessly talk about the stuff that I'm really passionate about. Like, I'm probably rambling so much in this interview right now, but yeah, I really love to talk about anything I'm interested in. Whether it be horror movies, music, or, creepypastas, or whatever it may be. So reviews were just, to me, like the best way to sort of talk about what I'm interested in, and just candidly talk about it, and not have to worry about scripts, or not have to worry about what other people think. Just talk about what I want to talk about, what I think about this thing that I love so much, and being able to share it with people. That was basically the whole intention. But sadly, I don't do reviews as much as I used to, but I really, really need to get back on it, especially with all these horror movies that are coming out.
What is the funnest part about doing reviews?
The review itself is always fun, no matter what. Unless it's something that I absolutely did not want to sit through, which, again, I don't put myself through that. I really only deal with stuff that I really enjoy. But the best part of it, to me, is seeing the comments. Seeing people talk about what they thought about it as well. Of course, you do get the sort of troll comments or the mean comments or whatever, but they're completely outshadowed by the positive or constructive comments that people share with each other. And that's also the best thing about YouTube, in my opinion, is being able to really meet people and converse with people who have all these interests, the same stuff that you do. So, especially when it comes to reviews, sorry, there's a thing driving by right now, but especially when it comes to reviews, you're going to get a lot of people who sort of geek out with you, so to say. Yeah, that's probably, in my opinion, the best thing about it, other than actually watching the content, or listening to the content, or reading the content, and then talking about it. Getting a response from people is such an awesome thing.
What is the hardest part about doing reviews?
Oh my God. Okay, so the hardest part about it, other than people who completely disagree with you in the comment section, is trying to present it fairly, I guess. When you judge a story or a piece of art or something like that, you're most likely going to give the pros and cons. In my opinion, good reviews will give you the pros and cons. I'll geek out about whatever I love about it, but then I'll be honest with you about its drawbacks. And trying to word the drawbacks nice enough is sort of hard for me, because I think to a lot of people I come off as very blunt and maybe mean sometimes, but I don't want to trash talk anything, basically. I don't want to come off as just a negative troll or anything like that, on the internet. So yeah, trying to constructively word sort of negative things about something I love is extremely difficult for me.
And we are on the last question for you.
Uh-huh.
What is a fun fact about yourself?
Okay, I'll be honest, I totally put this question aside. Is there anything interesting about me? Oh my God, okay, I did not think about this one. This is a totally random one. Let me see.
This is always the hardest question.
Yeah. I don't know. I talk about pretty much everything that I'm into. on my channel already, so it's like, what am I even going to talk about? Let me see. I'm an art student. I do ceramics, even though that's totally not my major. I don't know. Is that interesting? I have a cat named Felix, who I got like last month, and I named him after PewDiePie. I mean, those are like more than one thing, but I guess that's that. I should have thought about this more.
No worries. Is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I mean, to anyone who's watching this right now or watching it, later on, thank you so much for watching. I'm glad that you stuck through listening to me babble on about myself, and I hope to see you on my channel next time. So yeah, thank you so much for watching.
Okay. To anyone who hasn't already, make sure to check out the links that are in the description below and go show some love and support and comment and like and subscribe. And thank you very much for joining me today. And I guess that is it for now. So bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.